The massive crystalline chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from 47 different species gathered for what many believed would be humanity's final judgment. Ambassador Sarah Chun stood at the defendant's podium, her small human frame dwarfed by the towering alien delegates surrounding her. The air recyclers worked overtime to accommodate the various atmospheric requirements of the assembled beings, creating a symphony of mechanical whispers that seemed to echo the uncertainty filling the room. High Chancellor Vextar of the Zephyrian Empire rose from his elevated throne, his four arms gesturing dramatically as his translator device converted his chittering language into galactic standard. We are here today to address the unprovoked aggression displayed by the human species against the lawful expansion efforts of the Hegemony Coalition. Humans have committed acts of violence that violate every principle of civilized galactic law. Sarah's jaw clenched as she listened to the accusations. Around the chamber, holographic displays showed images of destroyed Hegemony ships, burning alien colonies, and what the prosecution claimed were peaceful exploration vessels reduced to twisted metal and debris. The narrative being painted was clear. Humanity was a savage, violent species that had lashed out without provocation against innocent explorers. The evidence is overwhelming, continued Chancellor Vextar, his serpentine tail swishing behind him in what Sarah had learned was a sign of satisfaction among his people. Human forces have destroyed over 200 vessels belonging to member species of our coalition. They have refused all attempts at diplomatic contact and have shown nothing but hostility toward our peaceful expansion into unclaimed territory. The Aquarian delegate, her translucent blue form shimmering in the chamber's artificial light, raised one of her tentacle-like appendages. The humans have demonstrated a level of violence that is unprecedented in our recorded galactic history. Their weapons technology, while primitive by our standards, has been employed with a ruthlessness that speaks to a fundamentally warlike nature. Sarah felt her hands trembling slightly as she gripped the podium's edges. These beings spoke of peaceful expansion and diplomatic contact, but she knew the truth. She had seen the footage from Earth's outer colonies. She had read the reports from the survivors. The images they were showing the Council told only one side of the story, carefully edited to remove context and paint humanity as the aggressor. Furthermore, added the Centaurian representative, his crystalline voice ringing through the chamber like breaking glass, the humans have shown no willingness to submit to proper galactic authority. They refuse to acknowledge the sovereignty of the Hegemony Coalition over the territories in question and continue to occupy worlds that have been legally claimed through proper galactic protocols. The chamber filled with murmurs of agreement as various delegates nodded or performed whatever gesture indicated assent in their respective cultures. Sarah could see the way this was going. The Council had already made up their minds. Humanity would be classified as a hostile species, subject to whatever sanctions or military action the Hegemony Coalition deemed necessary. High Chancellor Vextar gestured towards Sarah with one of his lower arms. The defendant will now have the opportunity to present their species' defense, though we expect little more than the barbaric justifications we have come to expect from this primitive race. Sarah took a deep breath, her mind racing through the speech she had prepared during the long journey to the galactic capital. She had known this moment would come eventually. Ever since the first Hegemony ships had appeared in human space 6 months ago, she had known that humanity would eventually be called to account for their actions. What the Council didn't understand, what none of these superior alien civilizations could comprehend, was that humanity had not fired the first shot. Honorable delegates, Sarah began, her voice steady despite the weight of her entire species' future resting on her shoulders. I stand before you today, not as the representative of aggressors, but as the voice of a people who have done nothing more than defend their homes and families. The chamber erupted in derisive sounds from various species, but Sarah continued undeterred. You speak of peaceful expansion and lawful claiming of territory, but you fail to mention one crucial detail. The worlds you claim were uninhabited, the space you call unclaimed, the territories you say belong to your coalition by right of discovery. She paused, letting the weight of her words settle over the chamber. Those worlds were our homes. That space was our territory. Those colonies were filled with human families who had lived there for generations. The murmurs in the chamber shifted from dismissive to confused as delegates began consulting their data tablets and speaking in hushed tones to their advisors. Sarah could see uncertainty creeping into their expressions as they realized she was about to present information that had been carefully omitted from their briefings. The silence that followed Sarah's revelation was deafening. Even the mechanical whispers of the air recyclers seemed to pause as the full implications of her words settled over the assembled delegates. High Chancellor Vextar's 4 eyes blinked in rapid succession, a sign of confusion among his species that Sarah had learned to recognize during her preparation for this moment. "Impossible," hissed the Aquarian delegate, her translucent form rippling with agitation. "Our surveys indicated no sentient life in those systems." The protocols were followed precisely. Deep space scans showed no technological signatures, no signs of civilization. Sarah activated her personal data display, and holographic images began materializing above the council chamber. The first image showed a peaceful human colony on Kepler 442b. Families go about their daily lives in simple agricultural communities. Children played in fields of golden grain, while adults tended a livestock that had been genetically adapted for the planet's unique environment. "This was New Eden Colony," Sarah said, her voice carrying across the now silent chamber. "Population 43,000. They had been there for 67 years when your peaceful exploration vessels arrived." The image shifted to show the same colony from orbit, but now massive ships bearing the insignia of various hegemony species hung in the sky like dark omens. Sarah could see several delegates shifting uncomfortably in their seats as they recognized the vessels. "Your ships arrived without warning and immediately began broadcasting surrender demands," Sarah continued. "They gave our people exactly 12 hours to evacuate everything they had built over nearly 7 decades. When the colonists tried to explain that this was their home, that they had legitimate claims to the world, your forces opened fire on civilian transport ships, attempting to carry children to safety." The holographic display now showed the aftermath of the attack: burning settlements, destroyed homes, and the twisted wreckage of unarmed evacuation vessels scattered across the landscape like broken toys. Several delegates audibly gasped at the images, their various forms of expressing shock creating a cacophony of alien sounds throughout the chamber. High Chancellor Vextar rose from his throne, his 4 arms gesturing frantically. These images could be fabricated. Humans are known for their deceptive nature and primitive propaganda techniques. There is no proof that these events occurred as described. Sarah's expression hardened as she activated another section of her display. "Computer, play audio log from Captain Martinez of the transport vessel Hope's Dawn, recorded during the attack on New Eden Colony." The chamber filled with the crackle of static, followed by a human voice speaking with barely controlled panic. "Mayday! Mayday! This is Captain Martinez. We are under attack by unknown vessels. I repeat, we are under attack. We're carrying 300 civilians, mostly children and elderly. Our engines are hit. We're going down. Please, we're not military. We're just trying to evacuate families." The transmission cut to static, then to the sound of explosions and screaming before falling silent. The effect on the council chamber was immediate and profound. Several of the more emotionally expressive species began displaying signs of distress, while others sat in stunned silence. "That transmission was recorded by our deep space monitoring stations," Sarah said quietly. "Captain Martinez and all 300 souls aboard the Hope's Dawn were killed when your peaceful exploration vessel fired quantum torpedoes into their escape pods." The Centaurian representative, his crystalline form now dulled with what Sarah had learned was shame among his people, spoke in a voice that barely carried across the chamber. "The reports we received indicated that hostile vessels were attempting to attack our survey ships. We were told the human forces had opened fire without provocation." "And who provided those reports?" Sarah asked, turning to face the section of the chamber where the Hegemony Coalition's primary representative sat. "Who briefed you on the situation in human space? Who told you that our worlds were uninhabited and our defensive actions were unprovoked aggression?" The chamber's attention turned to Admiral Karath of the Draconian Empire, a massive reptilian being whose species served as the military backbone of the Hegemony Coalition. His scaled hide glistened under the chamber's lights as he rose to address the council, his voice a deep rumble that seemed to vibrate through the floor itself. The intelligence we gathered was accurate according to all available data, Karath declared. Human technology is primitive and easily overlooked by our scanning systems. If colonies were present, they should have responded to our hails using proper galactic communication protocols. Sarah felt a cold anger building in her chest as she listened to the Admiral's words. The casual dismissal of human life, the assumption that failure to use alien communication technology somehow justified genocide, the complete lack of any attempt to verify what they were attacking before opening fire. "Admiral," she said, her voice cutting through his explanation like a blade. "Are you seriously telling this council that your intelligence gathering is so sophisticated that you can detect quantum signatures from across the galaxy, yet so primitive that you cannot recognize the electromagnetic broadcasts of a technological civilization?" The Admiral's massive head tilted slightly, a gesture that Sarah knew indicated confusion among his species. Human technology operates on frequencies that are considered obsolete by galactic standards. Your radio waves and primitive data transmissions are no more significant to our sensors than the natural electromagnetic noise of a star system. "Then, perhaps," Sarah said, activating another section of her holographic display, "you can explain why your forces specifically targeted our communication arrays, power plants, and defensive installations while claiming they couldn't detect them in the first place." The holographic display above the council chamber now showed detailed tactical analyses of the hegemony attacks on human colonies. Red targeting indicators highlighted communication towers, power generation facilities, and defensive installations with surgical precision. The evidence was damning and undeniable. Each strike had been carefully planned and executed with the kind of accuracy that required detailed intelligence gathering. Admiral Karath's massive form shifted uncomfortably as murmurs of suspicion began rippling through the assembled delegates. The ethereal collective's representative, a being of pure energy contained within a shimmering force field, spoke with a voice like distant thunder. "These targeting patterns indicate extensive reconnaissance and intelligence gathering. Such precision strikes cannot be achieved against primitive technology without prior knowledge of its existence and capabilities." Sarah nodded grimly and activated another display. "This is surveillance footage from our monitoring stations showing hegemony reconnaissance drones conducting detailed scans of our colonies for weeks before the attacks began. The timestamps show these surveys started nearly 2 months before Admiral Karath's forces arrived." The chamber erupted in chaos as delegates began arguing among themselves in dozens of different languages. Some species expressed outrage at the deception, while others demanded explanations from the Hegemony Coalition representatives. Through it all, Admiral Karath remained silent, his reptilian features unreadable. High Chancellor Vextar struck his ceremonial staff against the floor repeatedly, the sound echoing through the chamber like gunshots. "Order! We will have order in this chamber." When the noise finally subsided, he turned his attention back to Sarah. "These are serious accusations, Ambassador Chun. You're claiming that the Hegemony Coalition deliberately misrepresented the situation to justify military action against inhabited worlds." "I'm not just claiming it, Chancellor," Sarah replied, her voice steady and clear. "I'm proving it. Computer, display the communication logs from Hegemony Command during the initial reconnaissance phase." New holograms appeared, showing intercepted communications between Hegemony ships and their command structure. The conversations were in various alien languages, but the translation software rendered them into galactic standard. As the content became clear, a shocked silence fell over the chamber. "Target assessment complete. Primitive human settlements confirmed across 17 worlds. Estimated population 12 million. Infrastructure appears agricultural and residential with minimal defensive capabilities." "Understood. Are there any signs of faster-than-light communication with other human systems?" "Negative, Command. Each colony appears isolated. Recommend sequential elimination to prevent coordinated response. Proceed with Operation Harvest Moon. Official reports will list all systems as uninhabited until claim procedures are complete." The impact of these communications on the Council was immediate and devastating. Several delegates rose from their seats in obvious distress, while others began frantically consulting with their advisors. The Aquarian representative's translucent form was now pulsing with angry red patterns, and the Centaurian delegate's crystalline structure was resonating with a high-pitched tone that indicated extreme agitation among his people. "This is an outrage," declared the representative of the Stellar Federation, her avian features ruffled with indignation. "The Hegemony Coalition has committed genocide while lying to the entire galactic community about their actions." Admiral Karath finally rose to his full imposing height, his voice booming across the chamber. "These communications are classified military documents. How did humans obtain access to secured hegemony channels?" Sarah smiled for the first time since entering the chamber, but it was not a pleasant expression. "That's an interesting question, Admiral. Are you more concerned about the fact that you've been exposed committing war crimes, or about how we managed to intercept your communications?" "Answer the question," Karath demanded, his massive claws extending slightly in what Sarah recognized as a threat display. "How did your primitive species gain access to quantum-encrypted military communications?" "The same way we've been fighting back against your supposedly superior technology," Sarah replied calmly. "You see, Admiral, you made a fundamental error in your assessment of humanity. You assumed that primitive technology meant primitive minds." Sarah activated yet another section of her display, this one showing detailed schematics of captured hegemony vessels and weapons systems. The technical analyses were incredibly sophisticated, revealing complete understanding of alien technology that was supposedly centuries ahead of human capabilities. "While your forces were busy harvesting our colonies, our engineers and scientists were busy studying every piece of your technology they could get their hands on. Every ship you lost, every weapon you left behind, every piece of debris from your attacks became a learning opportunity." The schematics shifted to show human modifications and improvements to captured alien technology. Weapon systems have been redesigned for greater efficiency, shield generators have been enhanced beyond their original specifications, and propulsion systems have been streamlined in ways that made several of the more technically minded delegates lean forward with obvious interest. "You see," Sarah continued, "humans have a particular talent that seems to be rare among galactic civilizations. We're very good at taking something apart, figuring out how it works, and then making it work better. We call it reverse engineering, and we've been doing it for thousands of years." The Quantum Synthesis Collective's representative, a geometric crystalline entity that rotated slowly as it processed information, spoke with a voice like mathematical equations being solved. "The modifications shown here represent advances beyond our current understanding of these technologies. How is this possible with primitive human science?" "Because you're not dealing with primitive human science anymore," Sarah said, her voice taking on a harder edge. "You're dealing with human science that's been motivated by survival, fueled by anger, and focused by the absolute determination to protect our families and our homes." Admiral Karath's reptilian features twisted into what Sarah had learned was an expression of disbelief. "Impossible. Human brain capacity and computational ability are far below galactic standards. Your species cannot possibly comprehend technologies that require millennia for advanced civilizations to develop." Sarah's smile became predatory. "Admiral, would you like to know how long it took our scientists to reverse engineer your quantum torpedo guidance systems? Such technology requires decades of study by teams of our most brilliant minds," Karath declared confidently. 72 hours, Sarah said quietly. The chamber fell completely silent. 72 hours from the moment we pulled the first intact torpedo from a crashed hegemony fighter to the moment we fired our first quantum torpedo back at your forces. The stunned silence that followed Sarah's revelation seemed to stretch into eternity. Even the sophisticated translation systems appeared to struggle with the concept, creating small delays as various species' languages lacked adequate terms for such rapid technological adaptation. Admiral Karath's massive frame had gone completely still, his reptilian features locked in an expression of disbelief. 72 hours? Whispered the ethereal collective's representative, her energy form flickering with uncertainty. That is unprecedented. Our most advanced civilizations require extensive computational modeling and theoretical framework development, before attempting such complex reverse engineering. Sarah nodded grimly and activated another section of her display. Let me show you what human ingenuity looks like when our backs are against the wall. The hologram shifted to show a massive underground facility carved into the bedrock of an asteroid. Hundreds of humans worked frantically alongside improvised assembly lines, taking apart alien technology and rebuilding it with modifications that would have taken the original designers years to conceptualize. This is Foundry Station Alpha, built inside a hollowed-out asteroid in the Tau Ceti system, Sarah explained. When your forces destroyed our shipyards and manufacturing facilities, we didn't surrender. We adapted. We built new ones in places you would never think to look, using techniques you would never think to employ. The display zoomed in on specific work areas, showing human engineers collaborating with artificial intelligence systems to analyze alien technology. The speed of their work was breathtaking, with complex alien devices being disassembled, understood, and improved upon in what appeared to be real time. You see, humans have something that seems to be uncommon among galactic civilizations, Sarah continued. When we're faced with a problem we can't solve with our current technology, we don't give up. We don't wait for slow, methodical research to eventually provide an answer. We improvise, adapt, and overcome. High Chancellor Vextar leaned forward on his throne, his four eyes focused intently on the display. This level of technological adaptation is theoretically impossible without advanced quantum computational matrices and decades of accumulated scientific knowledge. You're thinking like a galactic civilization, Sarah replied. You're assuming that technological advancement requires vast bureaucratic systems, formal research protocols, and careful peer review processes. Humans work differently. When Dr. Sarah Kim's daughter was killed in the attack on Proxima Colony, she didn't file research proposals and wait for funding approval. She grabbed a quantum torpedo fragment and started taking it apart on her kitchen table. The display shifted to show a small human woman working frantically in what appeared to be a residential kitchen. Alien technology scattered across surfaces that were clearly never designed for such purposes. Around her, holographic equations and technical diagrams floated in the air as she worked with an intensity that bordered on desperation. Dr. Kim didn't just reverse engineer your quantum guidance systems, Sarah said quietly. She improved them, made them faster, more accurate, harder to defend against. She did it in 72 hours because her daughter's death gave her a level of motivation that your academic research institutions could never replicate. Several delegates were now visibly uncomfortable, shifting in their seats or displaying whatever physical manifestations of unease their species possessed. The Aquarian representative's form had shifted to a deep purple coloration that Sarah knew indicated profound distress. But the computational requirements alone, protested the Quantum Synthesis Collective's representative, his geometric form spinning more rapidly as he processed the implications. The quantum mathematics involved in guidance system modification require processing power equivalent to a stellar-class computational matrix. Sarah's expression became grim as she activated yet another display. This one showed the interior of Dr. Kim's improvised laboratory, but now the view focused on something that made several delegates recoil in shock. Sitting on the kitchen counter, connected to alien technology by a web of improvised cables and interfaces, was a human brain suspended in a life support apparatus. "Meet Dr. Robert Chun, my brother," Sarah said, her voice carefully controlled. He volunteered to undergo experimental neural enhancement procedures to increase his computational capabilities. The process is irreversible and extremely dangerous. 3 out of 4 test subjects died during the procedure. The chamber erupted in horrified exclamations from various species as they realized what they were seeing. The concept of voluntarily modifying one's own brain for technological advantage was so far outside galactic norms that several delegates' translation systems were struggling to convey the idea properly. "You modified your own neural structure?" gasped the Centaurian representative, his crystalline form now resonating with harmonic frequencies that indicated extreme distress. Such procedures violate every principle of biological ethics recognized by civilized species. "Yes, we did," Sarah replied without hesitation. "We modified our brains to think faster. We performed experimental surgeries to enhance our problem-solving capabilities. We took risks that would be considered insane by galactic standards. And we did it all because you invaded our homes and started killing our families. Admiral Karath had recovered from his initial shock and was now leaning forward aggressively. Even with enhanced cognitive abilities, the technological gap between human and hegemony capabilities should be insurmountable. Your species lacks the fundamental scientific foundation necessary to compete with civilizations that have been developing for millennia. Sarah turned to face the Admiral directly, her expression cold as deep space. Admiral, you're still thinking in terms of conventional technological development. You're assuming that advancement must follow predictable paths and build upon established foundations. But humans don't always play by conventional rules. The holographic display shifted one final time, now showing real-time footage from the current human fleet operations. Massive vessels that clearly incorporated technology from dozens of different alien civilizations moved through space with a grace and efficiency that was immediately recognizable as superior to anything in the chamber. These are our current generation warships, Sarah said, her voice carrying a note of pride that sent chills through many of the assembled delegates. They're not just copies of your technology. They're fusion designs that incorporate the best aspects of every alien system we've encountered, improved upon with human engineering principles and powered by innovations that didn't exist in any galactic database. The ships on display were clearly formidable, but what made several military-minded delegates sit back in their chairs was the sheer number of them. Hundreds of vessels moved in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with energy shields and weapon systems that represented a disturbing amalgamation of technologies that should never have been able to work together. How many? Admiral Karath asked quietly. How many what, Admiral? How many ships do you have? Sarah's smile was not pleasant. All of them. The implications of Sarah's final statement hit the council chamber like a physical force. Admiral Karath's massive reptilian form went rigid as the full meaning became clear. Every ship the Hegemony Coalition had lost, every vessel destroyed in their attacks on human colonies, had not been eliminated. They had been captured, reverse-engineered, and turned into weapons against their former owners. Impossible, Karath whispered, his voice barely audible even with the chamber's advanced acoustics. Our vessels have quantum-locked security systems, auto-destruct protocols, biometric failsafes. They cannot be captured intact. Sarah's expression remained unchanged as she activated a new section of her display. The hologram now showed the interior of a captured hegemony dreadnought, but the bridge had been completely transformed. Human crew members worked alongside modified alien computer systems, while the ship's original security measures lay in sparking ruins around them. You're right about the security systems, Sarah acknowledged. They were quite sophisticated. It took us almost 6 hours to bypass them completely. Several delegates made sounds of distress at the casual way Sarah dismissed technology that represented centuries of development. The ethereal collective's representative flickered rapidly, her energy form destabilizing with shock. But the biometric locks alone should require DNA samples from the original crew, protested the Quantum Synthesis Collective's representative. How did humans overcome such security measures? Sarah's smile became predatory. We asked them nicely. The holographic display shifted to show Admiral Karath himself, sitting in what appeared to be a comfortable, human-designed interview room. He was unrestrained and appeared unharmed, but his expression was one of complete bewilderment as human interrogators asked him detailed technical questions about his own ships. You see, Admiral, Sarah continued, when we captured you and your command staff during the Battle of Wolf 359, we discovered something interesting about hegemony military doctrine. Your people are trained to resist torture, to withstand physical coercion, and to die rather than reveal military secrets. The chamber watched in stunned silence as the recording showed human interrogators bringing Karath meals, offering him entertainment options, and engaging him in what appeared to be casual conversation about military technology. But nobody trained you to resist simple human curiosity, Sarah said with satisfaction. We didn't torture you for information, Admiral. We just asked questions. Lots and lots of questions. You were so fascinated by our primitive species' determination to understand your superior technology that you spent 3 days explaining it to us in detail. The recorded version of Admiral Karath was indeed explaining complex technical specifications with what appeared to be genuine enthusiasm, occasionally using holographic displays to illustrate his points to attentive human listeners. You told us about the quantum encryption keys because you were curious to see if we could understand the mathematics involved, Sarah continued. You explained the biometric security protocols because you wanted to test whether human neural patterns could interface with draconian command systems. You gave us complete access to your ship's technical databases because you were conducting what you called a fascinating study in cross-species technological comprehension. The current Admiral Karath in the council chamber had gone completely silent. His massive form slumped in what Sarah recognized as the draconian equivalent of profound embarrassment. High Chancellor Vextar struggled to maintain his composure as the full scope of the situation became clear. Are you saying that the human military has been using captured hegemony vessels and technology throughout this conflict? Not just using it, Chancellor, Sarah replied. Improving it, combining it, making it work better than it ever did for you. The display shifted one final time to show a massive space station that dwarfed anything in the galactic databases. The structure was clearly of human construction, but incorporated design elements and technologies from dozens of different alien civilizations in ways that should have been incompatible. This is Fortress Terra, our new mobile command base, Sarah announced. It was built using improved versions of hegemony construction techniques, powered by enhanced ethereal energy matrices, defended by modified Centaurian crystal technology, and staffed by humans who have voluntarily undergone cognitive enhancement procedures. The technical specifications scrolling beside the station's image made several military advisors among the delegates lean forward with expressions of disbelief. The power output readings alone exceeded anything previously recorded in galactic military history. The question before this council is no longer whether humanity committed unprovoked acts of aggression, Sarah said, her voice carrying clearly across the now silent chamber. The question is what you intend to do about the fact that the Hegemony Coalition lied to you, committed genocide against peaceful human colonies, and started a war they cannot win. She paused, letting her words sink in before delivering her final statement. Because make no mistake, honored delegates, this is a war. You invaded our homes. You killed our families. You destroyed everything we had built over generations of hard work and sacrifice. And you did it all while lying to the galactic community about what you were really doing. Sarah's voice rose with controlled anger as she continued. You want to know about human nature? You want to understand what makes us different from your civilized galactic species? Here it is. When you attack us, we don't just defend ourselves. We adapt. We learn. We become something stronger and more dangerous than we were before. And we never, ever forget. The holographic display now showed real-time footage of human fleets moving through space toward hegemony territory. The ships moved with purpose and coordination that spoke to months of careful planning and preparation. We didn't start this war, Sarah concluded, her words echoing through the chamber like a final judgment. But we're going to finish it. The only question is whether the Galactic Council wants to stand with justice or continue to enable the genocide of peaceful civilizations by powers that see smaller species as nothing more than obstacles to their expansion. She stepped back from the podium and stood quietly, waiting for the council's response. Around the chamber, delegates were engaged in urgent discussions with their advisors, while others sat in stunned silence as they processed everything they had learned. High Chancellor Vextar finally rose from his throne, his four arms trembling slightly as he spoke. This council will recess for deliberation. When we reconvene, we will render judgment not only on the human species, but on the actions of the Hegemony Coalition and their representatives. As the delegates began filing out of the chamber, Admiral Karath remained seated, staring at the holographic displays that still showed his younger self enthusiastically explaining military secrets to his captors. Sarah gathered her materials and prepared to leave, but paused when she noticed the Admiral's expression. For just a moment, her anger softened slightly. "For what it's worth, Admiral," she said quietly, "your explanations saved a lot of human lives. The defensive modifications you helped us develop have protected dozens of colonies from follow-up attacks. Admiral Karath looked up at her with what she recognized as confusion. Why are you telling me this? Sarah's expression was thoughtful as she considered the question. Because despite everything that's happened, despite all the death and destruction, we're still human. And humans believe that even enemies can sometimes do the right thing, even if they do it for the wrong reasons. She turned and walked toward the chamber's exit, leaving the Admiral alone with his thoughts and the weight of what his curiosity had cost his civilization.